símbolo de numeral. Encontrará esta información en la ventanilla del chat. Recuerde silenciar el micrófono y mantener el sonido reducido del idioma menos preferencial. Nuevamente, la línea de conferencia en español 347-966-4114, código de conferencia 516-893-65, símbolo de numeral. Gracias. Very well.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting will be recorded and available on the CCD 75 YouTube page. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Safety Committee for the CCD 75. This will be one of the last meetings for the term, and it's been quite an experience, and I am proud for all of the information that we've been able to provide our community, and being the chairperson of this committee and being on the council. And I thank you for the time that you have allowed me to serve you. I just want to state again, the mission of the Safety Committee is to promote, review, and aid in maintaining measures that will fortify health and safety for District 75 parents and staff. Students, parents, and staff. Can't forget the students. The Safety Committee is charged with providing guidance and resources to support the whole child. Safety encompasses physical, social, and emotional wellness. Mental and physical wellness takes precedence for this committee, with the use of research and collaboration, along with the promotion of proactive behaviors. This committee will work with and advise the community regarding safety concerns. The content of this presentation is very important to me because a few years ago, my daughter went missing, and it was probably the worst and best day of my life. And looking back, I think about all the things that I didn't know, not that I did something wrong, but that I didn't know. I didn't know where the local precinct was. I went to a few. I went to another one, which was close, thinking it was my precinct. I didn't have a recent picture of her. And after she was located, I felt like I never wanted anyone to go through that or have that feeling. And the information that's going to be provided today is intended to help provide tools and knowledge for parents and caregivers so that we can try our best to keep our children safe. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, so please hold your questions for that time. With that said, I would like to present our first presenter, Ms. Janet Jones-Jordan. Ms. Jordan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Thank you so much, District 75, for having us here on today. We're so delighted. I am Janet Jones-Jordan, certified diversity professional. I'm also a senior director of community inclusion. More importantly, I am a parent of a son who has autism. I am joined today by some of my colleagues. We have Colleen Shin, she's the Director of Community Outreach. We have Andrew Nelson, who's Senior Director of the Autism Response Team. And you will also be hearing at the end of the presentation from Ms. Carla Starling. Carla is the Area Executive Director for New York. So thank you guys again for having us. And we're going to jump right in, share some information about Autism Speaks, and then we'll dive into the resources. So I just want to start. I don't always like to assume that everybody understands and knows what autism is, but autism, it is a spectrum disorder, refers to a broad range of conditions that are characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, and nonverbal communication. We know that there are many subtypes of autism, and autism, it can be caused by a combination of genetic and environmental influences. And so I often say to people, just think for a minute, if you know of someone with autism, and if you do, I often ask them to describe some of the strengths and challenges of that particular person. And a lot of times what comes back is that each person is different. And they are. There was a phrase that was penned by one of our current board members, Dr. Stephen Shore, who's also autistic. And what he said was that if you meet one person with autism, you meet one person with autism. And again, because it does present itself differently amongst those who have the diagnosis. Now let's talk about the prevalence rate of autism. Earlier this year, in May of 2023, the CDC reported new prevalence rates for autism. It's estimated that 1 in 36 children are diagnosed with autism, and it's 4 times more prevalent among boys and girls. And the United Nations estimate that 70 million people worldwide are impacted. And this increase in prevalence, what it does is that it reinforces progress and awareness and advocacy for early identification of autism, and also, among different groups, but it also reiterates the need for a significant increase in funding, because that is very important for autism research and for services to be provided across the spectrum and the lifespan, particularly for those in diverse communities where those prevalence rates are greater than those indicated in previous studies. And so we're going to go a little bit further and just kind of talk about, again, that occurred back in May of 2020. And it also indicates that, there was a study that was also done that 1 in 45 adults were diagnosed with autism, and that was on May 10th of 2020, and that's about 2.21% of the U.S. adults 18 age and older. And so those study highlights indicated that autism prevalence in adults had varied by region. Prevalence is higher in men, 3.6%, than in women. And many are not diagnosed until later in life, although autism can be reliably diagnosed around 15 months of age. Now, I have here some information about, autism and a person with autism and some of the characteristics of autism. Often in our day-to-day interactions, we take for granted just how naturally some of those responses can come, whether through verbal communication or visual cues. We have a number of ways that we've learned to connect. So for a person with autism, these exchanges sometimes can be a little bit more challenging. They may not respond to their name, which is a form of nonverbal or non-speaking communication. Sometimes they avoid eye contact. Society teaches us that making eye contact is the polite thing to do when speaking or listening to someone. Yet, for individuals with autism, oftentimes that is very difficult. They may have trouble understanding other people's feelings or talking about their own feelings, communication challenges. They may repeat words or phrases over and over. Or the words may not be functional. They may become upset in some of their routines. They may have high intense interests, such as movies and trains. People with autism, they usually know a tremendous amount about their intense interests, whatever it may be. Repetitive behaviors, sometimes they may flap their hands or rock back and forth. They may spin in circles, but just know that any form of communication is still communication. One of the things that I like to point out about autistic people is that they also have a very high attention to details. They may be highly skilled in particular areas or have deeply focused interests. They also may employ logical decision-making and use high levels of visual processing. So those are just some of the things that I want you to understand and know about those with autism. And of course, safety is definitely a priority for many families. About half of our community, they wander from safe environments, requiring multifaceted safety plans. So you might say, how can I interact, with a person with autism? Awareness and understanding, I often say, is very, very critical, but also welcoming, supportive, and inclusivity is equally important. Respecting each person's individuality. What are the best practices here? When interacting with both a person with autism and their parent, and you may have a question about what the person with autism wants to eat for lunch, or any question for that matter, speak directly to the person versus asking the parent to respond for that individual. Try to see all communication, behavior as communication. And if any frustration or anxiety rises, always remain calm, use limited verbal directions, consider taking a break, and be prepared to wait on the answer. Some may need more time to process information, but be aware of these sensory needs. if it's too loud or if the lights are too bright. And more importantly, if you have questions about a person with autism, just ask them. And so at this time, I am going to turn it over to Colleen Sheehan, who's going to talk about our resources by the life stage.
Thanks, Janet. Hi, everybody. Thanks again for inviting us to speak today. I am going to just do kind of a high-level overview of all of the resources that we have. We have phenomenal resources. They are all free and available at autismspeaks.org. So that first link you see here is just our main landing page. And you see over to the right kind of a snapshot of what that looks like. So you see at the top, when you go to autismspeaks.org, you'll see some tabs. What is autism? Help and information, our work, get involved, and then a whole Spanish-speaking section, which we are really proud of. One of the wonderful free resources that are very highly utilized here at Autism Speaks are our toolkits. We have almost 50 toolkits on a variety of topics. I'll get into some of them in a minute, but these are fantastic. They're free, they're downloadable, and just wonderful, wonderful things. Anything from what do I do now that my child has a diagnosis, all the way up to we have a guide for adults, and I'll talk a little bit about those. That if you click under Autism Help and Information at Autism Speaks, and you can see that tab there at the top, if you click on that, there's just a myriad of resources that will open up for you. And again, you can spend hours on this website. I know I do on a daily basis and feel like I learn something every day because there's just such fantastic resources. And I think Andrew just put in the chat that all of these links are active links, and we can provide this to you as a follow-up resource. You can go to the next slide, Janet. So another wonderful resource that we have at Autism Speaks is our resource guide. And this is really fantastic because you can go to the resource guide section and you can look up by the state that you live in. You can even drill it down to the zip code that you're in, the life stage for the resource that you're looking for, and also the level of support. And the reason that that's so important is Janet mentioned that autism is a spectrum. And so you have people who are highly skilled and have pretty limited, don't have a lot of support needs, all the way to people who need 24/7 care and have very high support needs, and then anything in between. And so having that level of support option to either select some, moderate, or intensive is a really nice feature, because then all of those resources will curate to that level of need that you have. So you can see here they're alphabetized. This is just a snapshot of part of the A's, so advocacy, autism-friendly services. There's so many different topics in here, but this is a great resource for you to utilize as well, and to share with other families that you might be working with that would need these resources. You can go to the next slide. So we have, as I said, resources for the lifespan. One of the resources that we have that's very, very heavily used, and we're really happy about this, is something called the MCHAT-R, and that stands for the Modified Checklist for Autism in Toddlers, the revised version. This is available on our website. This is a screener. This is not a diagnostic tool. It's a screener that parents can download, fill out, and then they can take that to their pediatrician if they have concerns based on what the results might be. And then the pediatrician can review it and then make recommendations for further assessment. So again, this is free, very highly utilized, and it's fantastic. We also have local, very specific, state-specific early intervention providers. You can see here the early intervention program for New York State Department of Health is listed here. Every state has their own early intervention program. And so there's specific states listed here at that link. And then we have, again, some of these that are more age-specific resources. I mentioned those 100-day toolkits for young children. This is really important because after people get diagnosed, a lot of times they feel overwhelmed. They don't know where to go. There's just so many things going on. And this is a really fantastic toolkit. And for young children, this is from 0 to 4. That's considered young children. And it really does walk people through, what do you do those first 100 days? How do you prioritize what you're supposed to do? There's also a whole section in the back that has nothing but acronyms, because we kind of live in this alphabet soup world. Once a diagnosis happens, and people are kind of throwing around things like ABA and OT and PT and SLT and IEP and IFSP, and people don't really know what those things mean. And so we've broken that down in a directory in the back, which is also included in that toolkit. It's one of my favorites. Also, sleep dysfunction can be an issue with individuals on the spectrum. So we have strategies to improve sleep in children, which I think is also wonderful. We have a toilet training guide. We know that potty training is hard for anybody, even typically developing children. So we've developed a very specific guide for children with autism. I've personally used this with some of the students and clients that I've used and worked with in the past, and it's really very helpful. And then we also have a parent's guide to autism. We have a bunch of different family toolkits. We have a parent's guide, we have a grandparent's guide, we have a sibling guide, because the family really is such an important part of that diagnosis. And, you know, it takes a village, and we have all these resources that really wrap those supports around families, and we're proud of that. So this is for school age children. So again, we're kind of breaking these out by lifespan. And if you have a child that is in a school setting and they need special, what we call related services, they'll deem being eligible through an assessment with school. That is not a diagnosis. It's not an educational diagnosis. When a child is receives eligibility determination through school, that's to determine whether or not they get services that are related services, OT, speech, social work, those kinds of things in school. And that's part of what we call the IEP, or individualized educational program. And that's confusing sometimes to people. So we have this fabulous guide to an IEP. We also, during COVID, we did a series of webinars around special education and how to access those services during COVID, and that lives on our YouTube channel. That was actually one of my favorite series that we did, because it really was impactful. COVID was just a really difficult time for everybody, but I truly believe that this community and the autism community was so impacted so heavily. To look back on that is just really interesting, and that's a really interesting webinar if you're interested in watching it. And then we have a school community toolkit that is wonderful. And when you think about a school community, your child's school community is just that. It is the bus driver, it's the security guard, it's the one-on-one aides or the paraprofessionals, it's the gym teacher. You know, it's every single person that comes into contact with your child during the day. And this is a really nice toolkit for all of those individuals that want to and need to learn about how to support a student with autism. I love that, actually. I love that one. And then just information about self-advocacy in school and education settings. That's really, really an important and key component to all this as well. So transition to adulthood, we have a very concerted effort to look at this entire lifespan. I've been with Autism Speaks almost 8 years. And when I started about 8 years ago, we really did start to ramp up services for adults and young adults. And a part of that, and a really key part of that, is transitioning to adulthood. And that's such an oftentimes overlooked area. And we don't want that to be overlooked, because transition is so important, and transition planning isn't an option for schools. It's a mandatory part of your child's IEP, as I mentioned. Starting at either age 14 or 16, we're advocating for all schools, all programs to have to start transition planning at age 14. The sooner the better. So this toolkit walks people through all of those resources, what to do, what to look for, where do I start, how do I prioritize? Again, just really nice breaking all that down. We also just created a couple of years ago what we call roadmaps. I love these because they are digital and they're interactive. So you can go online to these transition roadmaps, and we have 3 different topics. We have, you can see here, the example of the roadmap to housing and residential supports. We have one for post-secondary education for students who might be headed that way. And then we have one for meaningful employment. And these are really nice because they're also customizable. As I mentioned before, you can click on any of these topics, put in your age range, put in your level of support, whether it's some, moderate, or intense. And all of those resources, again, will curate to that level. which is really important because, like I said, everybody has such diverse needs in this community. These are really fantastic. We also got very, very active with social media pages during COVID, and those have really just grown exponentially since then. And one of them, or two of them, you see listed here. One is the Transition to Adulthood Facebook community group, which is really great. It's open to the public. It's a wonderful place for people to network and share ideas and share thoughts and share experiences. And we also have one for adults specifically with a diagnosis called Adulting on the Spectrum. That's actually run by autistic adults, and they do some really cool stuff on there. They have some really great blogs and podcasts, and so that's something if you're an adult on the autism spectrum to check that out as well. And then again, for our adults and some of the resources that we have an adult diagnosis toolkit. That is something that was recently revamped. We're very, very fortunate to have autistic contributors that work at Autism Speaks as consultants and that are also Autism Speaks employees that rewrote this. And we are really, really proud of this. We're actually going to do an entire webinar about this to walk people through it next month in July. But it's really wonderful because we do see and have seen an uptick in adult diagnoses over the years. And so that can be really confusing for people as well to understand how to disclose to people if you do receive a diagnosis, what are your rights as an adult? But this is just a wonderful toolkit, and again, recently revamped to really reflect what's also going on in our communities today. We also have a housing and residential supports toolkit, which is wonderful. One of the examples of that Adulting on the Spectrum page that I mentioned before, there is a show on, I think, Netflix called Love on the Spectrum. If you have seen that, and they had a guest speaker from Love on the Spectrum who was talking about her relationships, and that is fantastic. And then living with autism as an adult is another topic that they covered, and just personal narratives from parents and caregivers. And that's on our YouTube channel as well. So these are just some really wonderful resources for adults that you can look into. If you know someone who needs them, please pass the word along. And then finally, employment. We know that employment, especially during and post-COVID, became a really big hot topic. Luckily, Autism Speaks really has ramped up our services and resources and information around employment. So we have an entire employment toolkit. We have an employment specific employment Facebook page that's dedicated to employment called Employment Wins, or Workplace Inclusion Now. Which is great. And it's, again, a fantastic networking place for people to go and talk about their employment needs, their employment experiences. There's parents on there and autistic adults on there and employers on there that all want to interact. And it's really just a wonderful place. There's HR departments that get on there. There's voc rehab programs at Centers for Independent Living and life coaches, and all of these are also a part of that employment toolkit and our employment information in general. So please check that out. We have a lot of exciting stuff going on with regards to employment all around the country, and we're excited about that. And we also have, as you saw that beginning slide, a whole page dedicated to Spanish resources. And you can find those if you go to autismspeaks.org, and you can click on the tab for Spanish resources. And but we also have, out of those, some of those different resources that I spoke of earlier, we have those translated into Spanish. So we have the transition toolkit is in Spanish. We have one for challenging behaviors. There's one, the potty training one is also in Spanish. And then we have a haircut guide, because you can imagine sometimes it can be a nightmare to do things like go to the dentist or go get a haircut with a child who might have some sensory needs. And those are all resources that we have. And we do have the haircutting toolkit that's translated into Spanish, which is really, really helpful. Another one of my favorite Facebook pages that we have that we've developed is the Voices Latinas Autism Speaks just specific Facebook group. This is really very utilized by this community. And again, it's a wonderful way for people to connect and network and support one another. It's a really active page. There's some really great resources on there. So please join this page if you are looking for kind of a network and a community to support you. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to go. And I think that is it. So I'm going to turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Andrew Nelson, to talk about all the fabulous safety resources that we have. Thanks again for having us here.
Yeah, thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Janet. And of course, Ms. Husbands and everyone at District 75. We are really thrilled to be with you today. It means a lot to us that you would join us during your busy days and learn more about resources, come together and focus specifically now on safety resources. So just to dovetail a little bit on Colleen's last pieces of information around Voices Latinas, I know Aisha and Ms. Husbands are organizing a all Spanish language event, gosh, in 2 weeks, I believe, not even 2 weeks, next week. And so if you're interested, if you're a Spanish speaker or you know someone who might like that, I'm sure Ms. Husbands can point you in that direction. And also currently we are translating many of the resources you will see today are being currently translated into Espanol as well. So we will make sure that everyone knows once these safety resources are translated and ready for website download. Okay, everyone, we know that this is a top concern for our community. It's a top concern for human beings, but we know that safety challenges affect the autism community in a profound way. Janet alluded to a study that nearly half of all people on the spectrum experience some kind of wandering elopement in their time. And there's been some data and research studies that Autism Speaks has been a part of with other partners on wandering and safety. And just that figure alone, that, you know, over half of the people on the spectrum have experienced that, is significant. And Ms. Husband sharing her story, I'm so grateful you had a wonderful outcome. That's terrific. But we also know that, like the things you mentioned, not having a picture or knowing the precinct, some of those proactive steps that can be really helpful in those situations are what we're going to talk about now. Resources, tools, those kind of things that can help. Just to talk a little bit more about the data here, is this can happen to all people of all ages. I personally have been on searches for, you know, adults who have been lost in the woods that are on the autism spectrum. Not to be too heavy, but in my rural community here below Pittsburgh, we have had 2 tragedies in the community already this year where 2 young kids have drowned. So we just know that this is profound. It's the work that you're doing as a committee is so important, and we want to just equip you with as many resources as possible today. The other thing I want to point out that study concluded, though, is that this wandering and autism-related safety concerns do not stem from inattentive parenting. So many times this comes back onto the caregiver when we know that as caregivers, you are giving everything you have every day, and it's not for lack of trying and creating safety structures in place. So I think that narrative is just at least important to call out and say that we are doing everything we can as caregivers, and it is not because of anything that we've done. So this first link, and again, friends, we will send this to Ms. Husbands and the team, this whole PowerPoint, so that you will have every link at your fingertips. This first one that you see, Autism and Safety, is our landing page for our entire suite of safety resources. So what I'll kind of do in my next little few minutes with you all is to take you from the broad and then really look at some specific resources. I really encourage you to just start with this landing page and kind of pick apart and look at and see what you're interested in, because there's everything from what you can do in your home all the way down to what we can do with first responders and EMS and those kind of things. So that's a really important link to just bookmark someplace once you check it out, is that Autism and Safety landing page on our website. You can go to the next slide. So one of the key resources within that suite is what we call the Autism Safety Kit. It has 9 elements in it. I've pulled one screenshot of one of the elements, and that's the Safety and Wandering Prevention Checklist. It's essentially something you could do. You could sit down and in 15 minutes go through and kind of create a checklist of, have I thought about this? Have I made plans and provisions for this possibility? And again, it's not it's not that we're trying to be heavy, it's just that we know that that kind of preparation can really go a long way. So things like this wandering and prevention checklist, there's an elopement form, excuse me. There are tools within that safety kit that you can download and fill out and give to your school, so that if your child has an IEP or is eligible for services through school, there's an actual form you can create that says, let's come up with a safety plan together so that my child is safe in school. There are other crisis plans within that safety kit. So there are 9 elements and they're all free downloads. Once you click that link, you can kind of peruse them and see which ones appeal to you. Also within our safety landing page, you'll find an area for just products and services. And what the products are a lot of things like, you may have heard of Project Lifesaver. If you haven't heard of that before, it's essentially a RFID style transmitter that's comfortably worn on either a person's wrist or their ankle. And it's just to help with anytime a person might go missing. And what it does is it allows local law enforcement to help track them should they wander or become missing. I've seen this work 3 times in my community where somebody was located quickly because of this. And you'll find on that safety products and services landing page more of those kind of providers who help with safety products. You know, we hear from, on my autism response team, we talk to tens of thousands of families a year. And we hear from people who are doing everything they can to keep their child safe. And just sometimes you need that extra layer of protection for your peace of mind and your child's safety. So do take a look at that as well. We also have a safety in the home sort of workbook that takes you through. It's got window clings that you can put up that help with safety alerts. It has things like visuals that you can put around your stoves, and it's really geared to kind of help with burn safety and burn protection, as well as some other in-home safety items. So do take a look at that. It's got visuals that you can download and put up in your home or in any environment that you choose. And similarly, the Safe Signals workbook has some of those elements as well that you can download, embed into your own home, take a look at, modify, create visuals that really work for you and your family. So there's kind of our first dive, and we'll keep going on to the next slide. So I've brought it up already, and that's the connection between autism safety and water. Those two things are highly, highly correlated. Water tragedies affect our community disproportionately higher than other communities. People are attracted to water. Oftentimes there's sensory elements involved. There could just be curiosity. And we know that those kind of things can lead to tragic outcomes. So we want to talk about swim and water safety just to make sure that that's top of mind. And that link, the very first one, will take you to a whole sort of like bulleted out, have we thought of these things? Here are some strategies to try. Here are resources you might want to implement for your child or your home or your community. We have tools that can be handed right to lifeguards so that we can train those who are watching over our city pools and our local community swim areas, our beaches, so that they can feel comfortable understanding how to support the autism community as well. There's a summer is here for tips for a smooth transition. Many of these things were penned by our colleague JJ, who is a mother of a beautiful teenager on the spectrum, and who also has experienced some of these challenges in his life. So she brings some real authentic flair to those pieces. And then just a general FAQ around how to teach safety. So I feel like this committee is really geared for these kind of things, having these tools on the ready, downloadable, posted. If people need them, they can grab them quickly. And again, just to thank you for your work as a committee for what you've done to increase safety. And then, you know, this next deep dive is around information for first responders. We share this information all of the time. We know that law enforcement in the autism community, there's dynamics there that are being developed. We're unpacking a lot there. We're trying to make sure that all families feel safe and that all professionals are equipped with training and perspective and skills to make those interactions the best they can be. So you'll find a whole page dedicated just to law enforcement. You'll find similar pages dedicated to firefighters and how they can help in fire emergencies. I love this next one, 911 centers. It's really teaching dispatch and those kind of distribution centers how to, if you're talking to an autistic person who calls into 911, how to help them with language and processing. If you're helping a parent, how to better take the perspective of a family that has a person with autism living in their homes. I like this one. It's a personal passion. We're trying to, in my local community, create kind of a database that a family can opt into to say, if an emergency ever happens and my address is pulled up in the database, there'll be an alert system that 911 center can use to then alert their teams to say, we need somebody with autism expertise on this call because this is a family who has a person or individual who's autistic in their family. EMS, those are your ambulance drivers and all of those folks that are in EMS getting training. We're seeing some really cool developments in the last 5 or 10 years around sensory bags and communication supports that are being put on ambulances and fire trucks. So if that's something that kind of, lights a fire under you, let us know because we can help point you in the right direction of some of those resources. I'm going to unpack this hospital and emergency staff one a little bit too, because our kids and our teens and our adults on the autism spectrum disproportionately spend more time in the emergency room than others as well. And that can be anything from mental health support needs all the way to some of the things that come with GI and some of the autism specific health needs that are present. So there's a big push to really educate hospital staff and emergency staff as well. So you'll find great resources there. Search and rescue personnel. Again, I've been on a few of those. Those are scary events. And when they have a positive outcome, it's the biggest rush of dopamine you will ever feel in your life. And then this last one is tips for the judicial system. So should a person become involved in the judicial system for any reason, whether it's a minor traffic violation all the way up to something much more serious, we are trying to help the judicial system better understand autism and help that process take on the perspective of somebody with autism so that that's a little more smooth. The teachers and admin has a few things like the IEP safety ideas, as well as the school and community toolkit. So those are all available for free within that safety suite. And all of these links, my friends, will take you directly to whatever page you're interested in. So I hope that's helpful for you. So while we're getting our stuff translated, we did want to post some of these for Spanish language resources. There's a wandering prevention pager that's in Espanol. There's an autism and emergency wandering plan in Espanol as well as an elopement form, and then the Ready booklet for caregivers. So those are available right now. And I've, paged through them. They're really strong, but we're also going to get all of our stuff on board for you as well. That way, when you're on our site, you'll have those right at your fingertips. So we'll look forward to those. And Aisha, I'll try to see if we can have those ready by our presentation next week. But if not, we will tease them out to the attendees next week as well. So let's tie it all together before my friend Carla kind of shares a little bit more about what's going on in your neighborhood, and we can take some time for some questions. So tying it all together, if you're sitting here thinking, my goodness, this is a lot to process, I'm going to have 1,000 tabs open on my browser with all these resources, we get you, and it can be very overwhelming. One of the things I'd like you to experiment with, if you want a place to organize all of your information in one area, is something we call My Autism Guide. It's a free service where you can create your own dashboard and curated experience based on your interests, your child's age, and some of the key issues that might be going on in their lives. You can cultivate and curate this dashboard that'll give you information, resources, and community events that are happening in your area based on the information you add. It's pretty simple. Your name, email, I think it's your city and zip code, and then things that you're interested in, and then boom, away you go for free. You have a dashboard that'll cultivate and curate all this information for you. So next slide. When we talk to families, it's like, oh my gosh, I just don't know where to start. And starting in Google can be really scary because you can go into some, deep places really quickly. So if you're looking for just that one spot, I encourage you to experiment with this. You can see this is just a screenshot of how it looks. On the right upper corner, it's going to tell you if something's coming up in your area. So you can see that I live kind of in the below Pittsburgh. It's telling me when walks are coming up and sensory friendly events, different parades and things that I can watch for. It's also curating in that bottom right corner interests that it knows. It's right at the top there. It's saying Andrew's interested in safety. So I'm going to make sure he sees that this safety kit's available. And what's cool about it is any new blog that comes out, you'll see it. It'll land right in your feed. And then also you can search for service providers and resources right within My Autism Guide. So we like it. It's a neat tool. And if you have any hiccups with it, or if you have questions, I'm going to give you our contact information at the end so you can reach out with questions. Just a couple more, and then we'll pass to Carla for local events in your area. If you're somebody who's sitting there thinking, I really want to become part of the advocacy movement. I want to do more in my local community or at a state level or at a citywide level. Do check out some of the activities that are happening at Autism Speaks. There's some great ways to get involved. We have grassroots work that's happening in every state. So do check out some of these links. You can also sign up for alerts so that you can get notices when big bills are going through at the federal or state level. It'll kind of keep you informed on what some of the legal pushes are happening at an advocacy level. And then if you want to find your legislatures to do letter writing campaigns or emailing and calling to help support different initiatives, we've got that all cultivated right there at one link for you. And just so you know, every state has a protection and advocacy or disability rights office that can help. This is a link to find your area's disability rights office if you ever have questions. Centers for Independent Living can be wonderful shops to find information. There's COPA, the Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates, available. There's legal aid in each state. And there's also something called your Parent Training and Information Centers, which New York has some great organizations, include NYC, there's Synergia, CEDA, Advocates for Children. The PTIC in New York City is very strong as well. So if you need that advocacy support, it's there for you, and do reach out. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, and I will pass it to Carla Sterling.
Thank you, Andrew. And again, thank you to District 75 for allowing us to present to you today. We're really glad to have this opportunity and look forward to working with you guys now and in the future. So I'm Carla Sterling. I'm the Executive Director for Autism Speaks for New York State. So I thought I would just spend a few minutes sharing a little bit about some of the events we have coming up that are very family friendly. They include the 4 walks we host across the state in New York City, on Long Island, Westchester, Greater Hudson Valley, Fairfield County, and Staten Island. These are events, they are fundraising events, but they have a component that's so community driven. So many of the people that attend the events, and you can see the picture that I included here, because it really is a mass turnout of the autism community, everything from self-advocates, individuals who are on the spectrum, parents, caregivers, educators, service providers, the medical community, the corporate community. They're just all out in force just to really celebrate the autism community and share experiences and information and resources. All of our events in New York are held in October, from October 1st in New York City all the way through the 22nd on Staten Island. And so we encourage you to join us. You'll meet, it's a great way to meet with people who have similar experiences and really connect with some of the services and resources that are available to your community. And people walk away with a host of information. And it's just a wonderful experience. One of the things that we do, and I think I have one here, is during the ceremony, we'll have different speakers from the medical and other communities. And one of the things we do is, it is an autism sensory friendly event. So one of the things, for instance, we do, we don't clap, we sort of just shake our pom-poms and have some speakers, some parents that have gone through, can share some of the challenges and the triumphs. So we do encourage you to come out and join us in October. And if you're looking for information about these events, you can reach out to us at any time for details. We do also have a 5K run, a 1K fun run, but this is the 3rd year. We will be hosting that. Actually, that will be in April. I'm sorry, that date is wrong. It will be April 6th of 2024 in Prospect Park. So whether if you're a runner or you're like me, or you're someone who intends to run, you can come out and join us and have a good time. And again, connect with the community, or for a good cause, and to again learn about resources in your local community. Next slide, please. We also have a campaign that we're hoping to kick off in schools in the fall. And so we'd love to have a conversation with you now about what that could look like. And it's our High Five Anti-Bullying Kindness campaign. And it really is a wonderful way to engage kids within the school systems around kindness and anti-bullying. There is a fundraising component, but it's also a great way for the kids to just think about how to be nice to each other, how to share experiences. And we do have some great swag and prizes that the kids can win. And the schools that we've rolled this out to have really embraced it and thought that it was a really great campaign that has some really great teachable moments. So hoping that we can work with District 75 to roll that out across the district. And also our volunteer opportunities. One of the ones that we have coming up pretty quickly is we do have a golf classic, and it's very it's well attended by the corporate community, especially the finance community. We do raise millions of dollars for the organization, but it's a fun afternoon. And we're always looking for volunteers to come out to help us with registration, with spotting holes, etc. It's a fun day, and the food is amazing. So if you or anyone you know who's interested in volunteering, we'd love to have you there. Also at the 5K, if you're not running or walking and just want to volunteer to help us, we'd love to have your support. And then we do have these events, these committees that are volunteer leadership opportunities. If you want to be involved in your community and help us to help the autism community, a great way to do that would be to join one of our market committees in New York, Westchester, Long Island. And then we do have local impact grants that we award each year across the country, thousands and thousands of dollars to local organizations that do direct service, provide direct services to the community, whether that's horseback riding, swimming in safety, cooking classes, whatever the case is. And we do provide those grants, but we ask for the community to help us in vetting some of the proposals that we get, because we receive hundreds of proposals across the country, and would love to have your involvement there as well. And I think that might be, oh, and then the last way is obviously connecting with us on social media. We're on all the major platforms, and would love to have you connect with us and follow us and share your experiences, and tell us what we're doing right, and tell us where we maybe need to provide more over social involvement. We really love to connect with the community and have your participation across all avenues. So look forward to seeing you beyond this presentation, and thank you again for your time today. I think I may be sending it back to, I'm sending it back to, I believe, Andrew.
Got it. Yes. Thanks, Carla. So one thing, if you're on Instagram and you saw that, I think it was just at Autism Speaks, just last week. Yeah, there we go. Just last week, we did a live sort of like Q&A in our story on safety. So this community might be really interested in just scrolling back a few days and checking out that event that we did all around safety on Instagram. So I just wanted to point that out. If you are a family member, person, neighbor, friend, person on the spectrum, and you have questions about resources or tools or information outside of this presentation, please do reach out to our autism response team. You can find us at those email addresses. And also we have a QR code there. If you want to zap that, that takes you to our contact us form, where you can tell us what you're looking for, give us a little information about your request, and we can respond quickly to your needs. So we just want you to know that that's available, and we're here for you should you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted the translator, can you just answer the question or address the question in the chat? There's a Spanish from Sarah. I just wanted to make sure that her question was addressed. And if anyone has any questions, I just wanted to say thank you, and that we had someone from the FDNY earlier in the year, and they addressed it's kind of what you addressed about informing your local fire department or your local precinct that you have a child that has special needs. And I think just giving this information, because a lot of us don't know what resources are available. And if you look at the chat, you see like a number of us had similar experiences with missing children, and thankfully all of our children were recovered and found. So, I really appreciate you being here and sharing this information. And if there are any questions, just raise your hand or put it in the chat. is there any, the interpreter, is there a question on the interpretation line? Let's just go there first and just see.
So far, no one is asking a question in the interpretation line.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have a question or a comment? Ms. Roseman, it looks like you're speaking, but I can't hear you if you are. Well, we can't hear you.
Oh, no, I'm not. But thank you so much for the information.
Okay, okay. I saw your lips moving. I thought you were speaking. I thought,
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
I see a question. What someone just asked in the chat box, could these resources be available in local libraries? We do have one-sheeters, that we can share, and those resources can be placed in a local library if you choose to do so.
okay. A few people stated that they were very grateful for this information. And again, like Andrew stated, we are going to have a similar presentation solely in Spanish. So you won't hear me speak so much. I'll be on the interpretation line, but we will have one for our Spanish speaking families, and that will be next week. There's another question. Will you send those one-sheeters to?
I'll put my email in the chat box, and you can just I'll actually put, Andrew, you want me to put the help?
Yeah, Janet, just you can put that if you want, and then
Okay.
it'll all go to one place and our team can take care of those. So if you just
Okay.
email help@autismspeaks.org or ayuda@autismspeaks.org. I think Janet's typing those in the chat. And just say, I would like some, one-sheeter information for my local library. We will be happy to get you those. Thanks, Janet.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Sarah. I was Cheryl, I'm sorry. Just looking through the, Amy, you have a question?
No, I just have a comment, and I just wanted to say thank you to all participants. I have a 17-year-old son who has autism, and we actually live by Fordham University, and we attended a couple of the holiday events that they do with the community of individuals with autism from all ages. So it's really nice for all the students and volunteers at the event. I think of great work that Autism Speaks does to the community, because it's really inclusive of not just the individual, but also that the family that participates in these activities. So I just want to say thank you, and I really do hope that other city colleges and other universities participate in these kind of community events, because we just don't have enough in communities that are most dire need of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, for your comment. And definitely working within the city, I think there is a Brooklyn and Bronx, all boroughs, but I think there is a need in Brooklyn and the Bronx for resources, and there may be a lack, so reaching out to those communities, I think it's a real great move on your part. You have done that. And okay, so I just want to thank you again. And if there are no other questions, Ms. Fanny, you unmuted
Yes, I
yourself?
have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So my question is, I have 3 kids on the spectrum. Well, they're not kids, they're teens now. So my oldest will be graduating from QCC in December. And I'm having a hard time trying to find out what the next step is for us as far as job coaching and him getting a job, because he has had issues when he's had previous jobs as far as work, the expectations, right? So where would I be able to find some type of resources where I can get him almost like train on work etiquette and what is expected of him at work?
Yeah, I can take that one, Fanny. Thank you so much for your question and best wishes to your recent grads and your family.
Thank you.
There are some key state resources like vocational rehab and those kind of things that can really play a key role in that person's transition into employment or post-secondary, whatever they might be looking at. Well, you said he just graduated from QCC.
December, he will be graduating. Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm kind of trying to see what the next path for
Yeah.
him would be.
Yeah, I think there's two things I would recommend is to reach out to your nearest PTIC, your Parent Training and Information Center. I don't know where you are in the city, but Include NYC is kind of across all 5 boroughs. They're going to have some great ideas, but I also would love for you to write to our autism response team at help@autismspeaks.org and just let us know that you attended this training and that you're interested in what you just told me. And then our team will put together local and state, and if you need federal resources, that'll help you with that transition.
That would be great. Yeah, he got self-direction already, so we're waiting for his
Oh,
budget.
good.
Yeah.
Terrific.
So
You're
yeah,
cooking with OPWDD and all that already, so that's
yeah,
good. Okay,
yes,
great.
that's
Yeah,
wonderful. Thank you. I will do that. Mhm.
sure. Okay.
I would like to jump in real quick too, Fanny. One of the upcoming events that we're hosting is the Transition to Adulthood. It's a Pathways event, and I'm pulling up the link here, but it's a national event, and we know that states kind of vary with transition resources and everything, but we do have state-specific resources that will be available in booths, including for New York. So if you attend that, I think you'll find it really, really valuable. We have some fantastic speakers. We have 2 different panels, a professional panel, and we also have a panel of self-advocates who are going to share their stories about what they experienced during the transition to adulthood process, and really kind of across the spectrum. I have somebody who's got limited verbal skills but is gainfully employed and very, very happy and successful, and someone who's entering his senior year in college. So it's going to be a fantastic event, and they're always very, very inspirational, definitely for me, to help plan and meet all these fantastic people and families and professionals. So hopefully you will attend it. I'm going to put the link there, and you can
Thank
register
you.
with that. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like my son, he's always been an honor student and he's doing really great and everything. It's just the work setting that we're just, it's obviously it's not the same as going to social skills, right? All the socials, I find that they have learned so much social skills, but then they don't know how to separate the work social skills, the regular social skills with friends and the work,
Yep.
right? Etiquette, like how to behave at work. So yeah, he's having a hard time.
Thank you, Fanny, for your question, and it's totally understandable. I have a child that's graduating December 5, and she's, it's a similar situation. So I totally understand.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your help.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? You can raise your hand or unmute yourself.
District 75 is a really special place. I got to do some work there 10 years ago with autism classrooms, and it's an incredible environment and place. So we're just, it was an honor to be with you. And I just wanted to say thanks one last time.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for the whole team. We really appreciate this, and we will remain in contact. I will see you next week for our Spanish version of this, and it will be interpreted in or translated into English and Mandarin at that time. And again, if you have any questions, please contact. The information is in the chat. Colleen has given the information. She's put it in the chat. You can contact the district as well. And the slide, the deck, I believe, will be sent to me And thank you. Thank you all again. And this will be available on our YouTube page. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Have a great day.
Oh, wait, when Jenny has a question, I'm sorry. Jenny, you have a question? 1 second, I'm sorry. I just saw. Will you guys send that to our email? Can you just put can you email the email that Colleen put in the chat? Just
That's
scroll.
just a link to the upcoming transition event. Janet,
How
did you put your email in the link? Or you did the help and
Okay.
I, that's the autism response team link.
Yeah, so help@autismspeaks.org. If you would just
Oh, I see.
send an email to that link.
I see. Jenny wants it to arrive in her email. How about I put the link to the pathways in our presentation and then
Oh,
send the
okay.
whole
Is that what she's looking for? Okay.
and then Jenny, I'll send the whole presentation to Ms. Husbands and the District 75 team, and they can distribute it to the whole list that
Okay.
came to this presentation.
Yes, Jenny, just email. You can email me, AISHA. I'll just put my name in the chat. My email in the chat. You can email me personally. And there it is. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Again, you have a good day, everyone.
You too, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. We can turn off the recording and then we can end the meeting.